Last month when Bonnie and I were on vacation up north at our cabin, Bonnie's older sister, Linda, came and spent a couple of days with us. Now Linda told us that she was going to be bringing her new friend, Jack, to be with us at the cabin. Linda lost her husband, Fid, probably about 4 years ago. And for a long time she was single, but I guess recently she decided to strike up a little relationship with Jack, and so this was going to be our first chance to meet Jack. Now I liked Fid. Fid was a fisher, just like me. So we got along well together. When I heard that Jack was going to be coming, it was like, well, I'll wait and see what gifts and graces he might have as an individual. Well, they came, and they came shortly before it was fishing time. So when it got to be fishing time, I invited Jack to come with me fishing. Jack told me that he wasn't much of a fisherman, but he really would like to come and just sit with me in the boat and visit. And I said, great. So Jack got in the boat. We motored out to my first walleye spot. I call this spot Snag Heaven. It's actually a hump, rises up to about 13 foot below the surface of the water, and then drops back down again, full of rocks, thus the name Snag Heaven. And after getting to that spot, we made our first kind of pass over it, drifting, and voila, I quoted a walleye. And Jack was impressed. And a couple more minutes went by, and I bought another walleye, and then I bought another walleye. And after about the fourth walleye I brought into the boat, and of course I released them all, Jack looked at me and he said, "You catch walleye like this all the time?" And I said, "Well, I'm pretty successful catching walleye by jigging." I said, "But you know, Jack, I could probably even catch more if I varied my techniques." Not being a real fisherman, Jack looked at me and said, "Well, what do you mean, if you varied your techniques?" I said, "Well, you can catch walleye a lot of ways. I mean, you can jig for walleye, which is what I do. Or you can cast crankbaits for walleye. Or you can cast swim baits for walleye. Or you can drop shot walleye. Or you can troll for walleye. Or you can fish walleye below a slip bottom." I said, "You know, these are the other common techniques to catch walleye. But," I said, "I just jig. I guess I'm in a rut," I said. And he kind of smiled. And he said, "Well, Mike, I don't really understand what you were saying about these other techniques, but I do understand about ruts." Well, we all understand about ruts, don't we? Give me a little amen here.
Amen.
I mean, we know about ruts because from time to time, we have fallen into them. I mean, some of you right now are in a rut. Some of you might be in a rut with your marriage. You've been on autopilot for the last 3 years, and there's no real excitement, and you know, you're just kind of cruising along, kind of in that marriage rut. And some of you might be in a work-related rut. And some of you might be in a rut with a relationship out there with a close friend. Some of you might be in a faith rut, where your relationship with God just really isn't growing, but not stagnating. It's just kind of there, not improving. Ruts. We know about them. Now, some of us have the ability to bounce out of a rut. I mean, some of us can climb out of a rut, like what you see on the cover of your worship folder. But while some have this ability to climb out of a rut, others don't. And they stay trapped in their rut for months and maybe years. Now, if you have that ability to climb out of a rut, then for the next 20 minutes, you can take a nap. Or you can pray, or you can pull out the Bible and start reading, because you don't need to hear what I'm going to share with you this morning, because you've got this ability to get yourself out of a rut. But if you're like many people, and it's hard for you to climb your way out of a rut, then maybe you ought to listen. Because for the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to share with you a 5-step biblical plan for climbing out of a rut. This plan was instituted by God and Joshua long, long ago. Now, as I told you before I read the scripture from Joshua, Joshua was Moses' aide. And Moses had died. And at that point, the Hebrew people had been in the wilderness for 40 years. Talk about being in a rut. A 40-year wilderness rut the Hebrew people were in. And so God tells Joshua, you're going to be the next leader. Now, unlike Moses, Joshua doesn't argue with God. And unlike Moses, Joshua doesn't make excuses why he should not be the leader. No, Joshua just assumes that responsibility and begins to make his plan. And herein we find the very first step in climbing out of a rut. And that first step is you need to recognize you're in a rut, and you need to take responsibility to change. And that's what Joshua did. He knew the Hebrew people had been in this 40-year rut. But at this point, he accepts his responsibility as a leader and now begins to make plans for a change. That's the first step in climbing out of a rut. You recognize you're in a rut, you take responsibility for it, you decide that you are going to change. The entrepreneur Stephen Brown once said, there are two kinds of people. Those who perform and those who make excuses. Making excuses is not going to get you out of a rut. But performance will. And the first step to get out of the rut is to decide that you want to climb out. You want to change. Now the next step in climbing out of that rut is to make a decision on where you want to go. Where do you want to go? Okay, if I'm going to climb my way out of this rut, where do I want to go? What's going to be the goal? For Joshua, it's a no-brainer. Where does he want to take the Hebrew people after they climb out of that rut? It is the promised land. That becomes the goal for Joshua. If we're going to climb out of a rut, we have to have a goal. We have to know where we want to go. Now, I need to share with you this morning that for many people, this second step is the hardest of all 5 steps. The second step is the hardest of all 5 steps. Deciding where you want to go. I was talking with a young man here a while ago. He's kind of in a low-level mid-management job, and he's not happy. But he doesn't know what he wants to do. You know, he thinks about maybe he ought to go back to school and just retool, or maybe he should stay in the same kind of general niche, but look for a different company to work for. Maybe one that gives him a little more chance to move and grow. But then he thinks, well, maybe I ought to just try something totally different, utilizing some of my other skills. But right now, he doesn't know where he wants to go. And until he makes a decision on where he wants to go, he's going to stay right in that rut. Trapped in that job that he really doesn't want. If you're going to get out of a rut, you need to know where you want to go. You need to have a goal. And Joshua had a goal. It was the promised land. He knew where he wanted to go. Now the third step in climbing your way out of a rut is once you know where you want to go, once you know what the goal is going to be, you need to come up with a game plan that will allow you to achieve that goal. And the game plan needs to be divided in small, manageable parts. Here again, God was very helpful for Joshua. Because God told Joshua, look, the game plan, the goal is to get into the promised land. But God said to Joshua, look, you're not going to take that promised land all at once. You're going to take it one city at a time. And so wherever you go and take that city, wherever your foot is, that will be given to you. In other words, God is helping Joshua by dividing the game plan of taking the promised land one city at a time. And that's what we need to see. We've got this goal. We know where we want to go. We've got the game plan to get there, but we need to take it one step at a time. For example, maybe your goal is to have better health. And so the first step is you decide you're going to start exercising 3 times a week. And so 3 times a week now you're going to the gym. And you work at that, just that step. And once you get that step in place, that you're now going, you're exercising 3 times a week, you've got your days, you know exactly what you're going to be doing when you exercise. Once you've got that in place, then you look at the next step and start working on the next step, which might be looking at your nutrition, watching what you eat, counting your calories, maybe joining Weight Watchers. And then once you've got that in place, then you look at the next step. You work at your goal one step at a time. Only moving forward once you've mastered that first step. Let's say your goal is to have a better marriage. You're in a marriage rut. So the first step in your game plan might be, well, you know, we could spice things up if we got together and had lunch once a week. And so maybe that's your first step. We're going to meet, husband and wife, and we're going to have lunch once a week. And you work at that. And once that's in place, then you move on to the next step. And that might be, okay, now we're doing lunch once a week. How about having prayer as a husband and wife and doing a devotion as a husband and wife while we're in bed, just before we go to bed? Let's work at that. And then once we've got that in place, we're now praying together at night, we're now doing the devotion at night. Now let's look at the next step in achieving this goal of having a better marriage. See, you need to have a game plan. And you work at it one step at a time. And the wonderful thing about it is as you complete each step, each phase of your overall game plan, energy comes and direction comes. And momentum builds up, and you just find yourself plowing on along to step number 4, step number 5. And then you see the goal is obtained. We get in ruts. So the first step, recognize you're in a rut, take responsibility for it, decide you're going to make change. Number 2, know where you want to go. What's the goal? What's the vision? For Joshua, it was the promised land. Step number 3, come up with a game plan that will allow you to achieve the goal or vision. And make sure the game plan is carried out one step at a time. You with me so far? The 4th step. Harness the power of accountability. Harness the power of accountability. Very rarely can you climb your way out of a rut by yourself. Hear that? Very rarely can you climb your way out of a rut by yourself. You need other people. You need the assistance and help of other people. So bring them on board and allow them to hold you accountable. That's the power of accountability. Going back to the health example. Okay, you know you want to exercise. You know you want to watch your diet. So bring other people on. Find other people to work out with, to meet you at the gym. And on those days when you're feeling lazy, like, well, I don't feel like going to the gym to work out today. Oh, wait, I can't because Joe is meeting me at the gym, and Joe is waiting for me and expecting me to come. And so because Joe is there, you end up going. When you're thinking about sloughing off that day, find other people who want to lose weight with you. They'll hold you accountable. You hold them accountable. Joshua did not conquer the promised land all by himself. He needed the help of all the Hebrew people. We, likewise, need the help of others if we're going to climb our way out of a rut. If you're in a rut spiritually, harness the help of other people. Maybe start meeting with the pastor to talk about your spiritual journey and why you're in that rut and what you might be able to do to get out of that rut. Or maybe you need to meet someone here at church and sit with someone in the pew. You know, it's a lot easier to go to church if you know that someone is waiting for you in the pew, or someone's going to be pulling up in front of your house to pick you up to take you to church. You see, the more you bring other people on, the more they can hold you accountable and thereby help you get out of the rut. The last step, call upon God. Joshua needed the help of other people, but he also needed the help of God. And as you read through the book of Joshua, you see time and time again God assisting Joshua. Because Joshua is asking God for help. He's asking for empowerment. He's asking for discernment. He's asking for direction. So if we bring God on board, God will help us as well. God will give us that direction, that empowerment, that strength. God will give us that sense of discernment. So ask God to help you work your way out of the rut. The Hebrew people were in a rut for 40 years. And then Joshua comes on board. And things start to change. And it isn't very long, and Joshua gets them moving, and they're climbing out of that wilderness rut, and they're making progress, and they're heading towards that goal. And under Joshua's leadership, the goal is obtained. And the Hebrew people are no longer in their wilderness rut. We can see the same effect on our own. But first, you have to recognize you're in a rut and decide to make some changes. You have to decide where you want to go, set that goal. Then you have to come up with a game plan that's going to help you achieve that goal, making sure that the game plan is divided into small, manageable parts. Then you bring on accountability by inviting other people to help you achieve your goal. And then finally, you ask God for help. And of course, that fifth step should take place throughout the other four as well. Asking God for help and guidance. This game plan worked for Joshua. And if we utilize it, it will work for us. So that you too don't have to be trapped